a gradual approach to African unity, whereas the Nkrumahs of the world, the NASAs, Modibo Keita, all these people wanted, a more effective approach towards continental union. The military years were besetted by the conflict in Nigeria, the 30-month civil war, but the civil war became a game changer in Nigerian foreign policy because Nigeria opened devices, especially the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union provided a lot of material and diplomatic support to keep Nigeria warm. The civil war, as I said, you can say, created a very important effect on Nigerian foreign policy. In the period after the Civil War, the Shagari years, you could really not talk of any serious move. Although I must point out that even during the military years, we had Bolaji Akinyemi, who was foreign minister, who articulated the concept of concentric circles. It's the concentric circle theory that was postulated by Agbola Gambari. So they were ministers for foreign affairs under the military, but being academics, they were able to make some theoretical reformulation and thrust in terms of Nigerian foreign policy. Now, we can say that generally speaking, Nigeria has been in favor of a Pan-Africanist position in terms of Africa being the centerpiece of Nigerian foreign policy.
Now, that is where I'm going to take this question from. We have said Nigeria has played a big role, especially when it comes to peacekeeping, always contributing resources and troops to peacekeeping efforts. Now, the question is, if we have made Africa the centerpiece of our foreign policy, what is in it for Nigeria? What kind of gains do we appropriate? What do we leverage on this kind of engagement? Engaging Africa from the perspective of, okay, we can always support. Where there is conflict, where there is disharmony, Nigeria will always play that role. What do we get?
Well, before I talk of what you call cash book or checkbook diplomacy, you must go back to the founding fathers. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe had an idea that Nigeria had a manifest destiny to lead Africa. It's not out of will, it's just thrust on us because of the sheer fact of numbers. Somebody previously said justice was not a numbers game. Now, foreign policy has a lot to do with numbers. Nigeria, by any yardstick, is the most important country on the African continent. Every African is Nigerian. Then God has given us humongous resources, both material and human, in terms of expertise. So Nigeria is looked up to by the rest of Africa. Look, Nigeria has 129 universities. There's no African country with such nuisance value. Some time ago, when I was in Addis, I was talking with an African ambassador who asked me that then we had only 94 universities. He asked, how many universities do you have in Nigeria? I said 94. He nearly fell off his chair. He said his own country has only 2 universities. So let us be understanding a bit about the prospects, for Nigeria. I know we've underperformed. We've not actually realized our full potentialities. But we can't ignore the fact that Nigeria is a mega power.
Chichi, just before we go, let us also look at reciprocity. Because if we don't gain by way of course, certain African countries cannot give Nigeria aid in terms of financials. It cannot give Nigerian aid. We have resources, we have mineral resources and all of that. But let's look at the policy of reciprocity. Humans live in other countries. And we have treating them like second-class citizens. Sometimes the Nigerian cannot get justice in some climes, in some systems. But here in Nigeria, you see people from, especially this West African sub-region, living even without, you can't walk in some countries in sub-Saharan Africa without someone asking you, for instance, of your residence card or your passport. So where does this, why do we have this kind of situation?
Well, I think Nigeria has been very indulgent to other African countries. But our last foreign minister, Ambassador of South Africa did not maltreat Nigerians. You remember when they deported some Nigerians for the yellow fever certificate? He ordered the same thing done, and the message sank in Pretoria, and they had to send the minister to Nigeria to apologize for their faux pas. Now, it seems people now know that if you maltreat Nigerians, the big brother too can strike back. But, you know, my students, when we say that there's no free lunch, they always say not even in free town. So I can say that Nigeria should adopt a carrot and stick approach in its relations. The last time I checked, Nigeria wanted to run for the seat on the Security Council of the UN. You know, countries that put up, they voted not for Nigeria, they voted for themselves while they were not in the running. Sierra Leone was not in the running. Gambia were not in the running. They did not vote for Nigeria.
Okay, Prof, let's ask you why we haven't deemed it fit to remodify a little bit, especially when, like Victor rightly said, reciprocity as expected is not necessarily playing it in our favor. As a time moving forward, do you think that perhaps we need to rework this to suit us and to be a bit in our interest as well while we are playing the big brother role?
You are spot on that, quite sincerely. And Nigeria has started adopting a tit-for-tat approach in terms of not being taken for granted. That's why I use the South African example as a case in point. And then the visa deniers. Nigerians go through horrendous processes of getting visas to visit other countries. Visit the consulate in Lagos, line up in the sun and treated just like vermin. Whereas in other countries, you don't find that. If you want to get a U.S. visa, for instance, in Canada, you want to visit the U.S., the reception, the approach is much different. So the way Nigeria has to tell other countries to treat Nigerians with a minimum, a modicum of decency. But again, Nigerians are so desperate. They always think that the grass is greener on the other side. People want to travel. They want. Nigerians are, you know, they are not tourists. Nigerians who are to buy things and that's why we want to stay home. I had about 30 to 40,000 medical doctors, Nigerians, in the United States alone. Okay, I don't know how many lawyers in the U.S. So Nigerians have professionals. Even in the NASA, we have Nigerian engineers there. So Nigerians have made good elsewhere, and they always think that it's better abroad than here. And that is why, for me, I think the government must zero in on even those who are here, instead of worshiping these people in the diaspora who abandoned the ship, went to make good abroad, and then they're most of us now. It is an embarrassment.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ayara, for joining us this morning. We have been talking to Professor of Law and head of the chairman of the International Relations Division of University of Lagos that has to do with the interchange between other countries and other universities, international bodies with the University of Lagos. Thank you very much, Professor Ayara.
You are most welcome.
And we thank you, our dear viewers, for being with us the entire time on the show. Thank you for choosing us and for staying with us. On this special day as your mind and relax.
Special thanks to all our guests for gracing this event. Is the 53rd Independence Anniversary on STV. And happy birthday to Tokunbo Ajayi, my friend who just clocked another year last year. Happy birthday to Today on STV as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.